With the approach of the rainy season, I left Chanthaburi to return to Wat Boromnivasa, and then went to teach meditation to the laypeople at Wat Sanahar, Nakhon Pathom province. From there, I went to stay at Wat Prachamnari, Ratchaburi province, at the request of Chaujam Sapwatana, head of the temple committee. I stayed at this temple several days, and during that time there were a lot of very strange events. One morning, a woman of about 20 came and sat in front of the sermon seat. A moment later, she went into convulsions. So I made some lustral water and sprinkled her with it. I started questioning her, and learned that there was a spirit of a man who had died a violent death dwelling in the area, and that it would possess people, causing them to be covered with hives, each swelling about the size of your thumb. When I learned this, I had no medicine to give her, but I was chewing betel nut, so I took the chewed up remains, threw them down next to her, and had her eat them. The swellings disappeared. This happened altogether 3 different times, and there were a good number of witnesses each time. Several days later, just as I was getting ready to leave, a woman named Nang Samaon, a niece of Nang Ngek in Bangkok, came to see me. She had once been ordained as a nun, but had later returned to lay life and married a former justice of the peace in Ratchaburi. She was about 40 and had a son aged 15. She held me in great esteem. Whenever I came to the Bangkok area, she would always come to seek me out that day. At about 5 in the evening, she came with an offering of flowers, candles, and incense. So I asked her, "What can I do for you, Mother Simone?" She answered, "I've come to ask you for a child." As soon as I heard this, I started feeling uneasy because there were only a few people present, and on top of that, she was speaking in a whisper. So I said out loud, "Wait until more people come." I was thinking of the future. If she really did give birth to another child, I'd be in a spot. So I wanted the whole affair to be out in the open to make sure that everyone knew the facts of the case. That evening, a little after 7 p.m., about 100 people came and congregated in the main meeting hall. Nang Samaon sat right nearby, to one side of the sermon seat. After I had given the precepts and delivered a sermon to the people, teaching them to meditate so that they could develop merit and perfect their character, Mother Samaon spoke up in a loud voice. "I don't want any of that, I want a child. Please give me a child, Luang Pho." "All right," I told her, "I'll give you a child." I answered her this way because I remembered a number of events in the scriptures. I then said, as if in jest, "Set your mind on meditating well tonight. I'm going to ask the Diva sons and Diva daughters to bring you a child." After she had finished meditating, she came and told me, "I feel really content and relaxed. I've meditated many times before, but it's never been like this." "There you are," I told her. "You'll have your wish." The next morning, I left Ratchaburi, taking the train as far as Prajuapkirikhan. Kun Thatsanawifag went along as my follower. We spent the night in a cemetery near the station in Prambury. The next morning, Kun That went to buy our tickets, with 120 baht in his pockets. This was right after the war, when they were using banknotes printed in America. The 100 baht bill and the 20 baht bill looked just alike. Kun That came back with the tickets, but without the 100 baht bill. He had mistaken it for the 20 baht bill, and so had given it to the ticket agent. He was all ready to return to the station to ask for the money back, but I stopped him. "I'd be too embarrassed to have you go," I said. He then got so upset that he was going to go back home, so I had to console him. The cemetery where we were staying was on a tall, forested slope. They had told us that no one could sleep there because the spirits were fierce, but we spent the night without incident. From there, we took the train to Surat Thani and went to stay on the slope of a tall hill near the train station. As night fell, people came to talk with us. I got to meet 2 characters named Nai Phuang and Nai Phard. They came together, and Nai Phuang let me in on their secret. "My home is in Nakhon Pathom province," he said. "I used to be a big-time gangster and killed a lot of people in my time. The last person was an old grandmother who died on the spot. Someone had told me that she kept 4,000 baht in cash under her pillow, so I snuck up to her room and stabbed her in the neck. But when I looked under her pillow, there was only 40 baht. From that day on, I felt so awful that I decided to give up crime. But even so, I still feel jumpy every time I hear a gunshot. Luang Pho, could you help find me something to protect me from bullets?" I told him. If you really have sworn off crime, I'll give you something that'll make sure you don't die from a bullet. He swore. I've given it up for good. So I wrote down a gatha for him to repeat over and over to himself. The next day, he came back and told me that his younger brother, along with a group of 9 others, were in the process of fighting off the police in one of the outlying districts. Some of the group the police had already captured, but his brother was still on the loose. He was afraid that his name might get dragged into the affair, so what should he do? I told him to go straight to the police and lead them to his brother. He did everything as I told him to, and a few days later, the entire group of bandits turned themselves in Naifuang, was able to get his brother out on bail. Eventually, when the case reached the courts, the entire group pleaded guilty. The court sentenced them to prison, but because they had admitted their guilt, cut their sentences in half. I didn't feel very comfortable staying there in Surat, because there were always shady characters coming to see me. I was doing nothing but good, but I was afraid that other people might start thinking I was aiding and abetting criminals, so I left, heading for Thungsong, and then on to pay my respects to the Buddha's relics in Nakhon Sri Thammarat. At this point, Kun That took his leave to return home to Bangkok. He bought my ticket, got me on the train, and I then travelled on alone. That evening, I reached the Great Chedi at Nakhon Sri Thammarat and stayed at the monastery connected with it. A number of people there, including a monk who was a friend of mine living at the monastery, were interested in meditation, so I stayed on, teaching meditation for a while. I then left, heading for Songkhla province. Reaching Had Yai, I went to stay in Patkim Cemetery, which was all overgrown and very quiet. A few days later, my friend, Phra Mahakayo, came looking for me and found me there in the cemetery. We stayed on for a while, and then went out wandering by ourselves from township to township. That year, I spent the rains at Wat Kwan Mead, Knife Mountain Monastery. I gave sermons and taught meditation to the monks, novices, and lay people practically every night. After the rains were over and we had received the kathina, I headed back and stayed at Kwan Jong Mountain, by a small village near Rien Canal. One day, I started seeing people pouring past in huge numbers. This went on for several days running, so I finally asked what was up. They told me that they were going to see the giant snake that had trapped a woman in its coils on Kwanjong Mountain. The word had gotten around that a giant snake with a red hood had trapped a woman in its coils at the very top of the mountain, and that until the allotted time came, it wouldn't let her go. On hearing this bizarre story, people had become all excited and started coming out in huge numbers to see, swarming all over the area near where we were staying. But in Kwanjong village itself, no one appeared to have heard the story at all. The whole thing was ridiculous. After we had stayed there for a while, we went on to stay at Ban Thong Pa, Talat Khlong Nhai, and Sadao district. At that time, the police chief in Sadao had been shot and killed in a skirmish with the Chinese communist terrorists. While we were there, a lot of people came to see us during the day, but as evening fell, they hurried back home, saying they were afraid the communists would attack. So I told them, I want you all to come for a sermon tonight. I promise there'll be no attack. Just after nightfall, at about 8 p.m., people came and filled the ordination hall of the temple where we were staying, so I gave a sermon and taught them meditation. A few days afterwards, we returned to Patkim Cemetery in Had Yai. This time, a lot of Had Yai people came out every night to receive the precepts, listen to sermons, and practice meditation. From there, we returned to Nakhon Sri Thammarat, stopping off at a meditation monastery in Rawn Phibin district, and then going on to stay in Thung Song Nai Sangwed. A clerk in the education office followed along as my student. We stayed at Tam Thalu, the cave that goes all the way through, for a while, and then went on to Champon. From Champon, we caught the train to Phetbury. This was when I learned that Somdet Mahawirawong had been sending letters after me, asking me to return to Bangkok. So I went on to Ratchaburi and stayed at Wat Prachumnari Luang At, the governor of Ratchaburi province, and the district official of Ratchaburi city came looking for me, asking me to return to Bangkok because the Somdet at Wat Barom wanted to see me. While I was staying at Wat Prachumnari, a monk at Khao Kayan Jan, Sandalwood Mountain, was captured by the authorities. I learned that 4 or 5 nuns from Ban Pong who were his followers wanted to come see me, but didn't dare because of the uproar over the monk. Although the story doesn't involve me, It's worth telling. It seems that the monk had told the nuns that his legs hurt from sitting in meditation and delivering sermons so much. So would they please massage his legs? And they actually started giving him massages. That's when the uproar started. The authorities looked into the matter and discovered that the monk had no identification papers, so they forced him to disrobe. During my stay at Ratchaburi, May Samaun came out to see me. "I'm over 2 months pregnant," she said, and then went on. "I'd like to dedicate the child to you right now, because it's your child, and not my husband's." She seemed dead serious about what she was saying. I didn't respond in any way, but I did feel surprised. She hadn't had a child in 15 years, so how had it come about? From there I returned to Bangkok and stayed at Wat Boromnivasa. I happened to arrive just as the Somdet fell ill, so I helped look after him. While I was at Wat Boromnivasa, this time a large number of people from Bangkok, Thonburi and Lopburi came to practice meditation. One day there was a strange event. A woman named May Kaum, a native of Lopburi, came and presented me with 3 relics of the Buddha. "Where did you get them?" I asked her. "I asked for them from the Buddha image right over your pillow," she told me. This Buddha image belonged to Nai Udom, who had brought it down from Keng Tung during World War II. From what he had told me, there seemed to have been a lot of strange events connected with this image. Here I'd like to back up to tell the history of the image. Originally, Nai Udom was a person who never felt much respect for monks. He was a government official working with the radio division of the Mass Communications Department. During World War II, he went along with the Thai army, headed by General Praphon, to Keng Tung. One day he went to set up quarters in an old temple with a group of enlisted men. That evening, after lying down but before going to sleep, he saw a bright light shooting out from the shelf over his pillow, so he sprang up to see what was there. At the time, he was the sort of person who, even though he was staying right next to sacred objects, never showed them any respect. But that day, he became curious. He craned his neck up to see what was on the shelf, and there he found a gold alloy Buddha image, about 8 inches tall and 3 inches across at the base, black and glistening, as if it had been polished every day. Seeing it, he grabbed it and put it in his suitcase. From that day on, his fortunes improved greatly. People started helping him, and he began to have more than enough money to spend. He got the money from people native to that area. When the war was over, he headed back to Thailand. On the way back, he spent a night on the bank of the Maijan River. That night, the Buddha image entered his dreams and said, "Dom, you bastard. You're going to take me across the river, but I'm not going to stand for it." Nai Udom didn't pay any attention to the dream. What power could a metal Buddha have, he thought. In the end, he brought the image back to Chantaburi, retired from government service, and set himself up in business as a merchant. During this period, he started looking wan and unhealthy. Life was becoming more and more of a hardship. After a while, his wife and children started falling ill, one after another. Nothing seemed to cure them. Luang Phao entered his dreams again. "I'm staying here with you against my will," he said. "You're going to have to take me back to my home." That year, it so happened that I had gone out wandering in Prajanburi province, staying at Young Savage Mountain. Around April, I crossed the wilderness and returned to Chantaburi. When Nai Udom learned that I had returned, he came running to see. "I'm really in a mess," Than For. "My children are sick, my wife is sick, I don't have any money, and now this Buddha image enters my dreams and tells me to take him back to Keng Tung where I found him. What should I do?" "Luang Phao is a forest Buddha," I answered him. "He likes staying where it's peaceful and quiet. If you want, have him come stay here with me." So Nai Udom brought the image and left it with me. Whether he actually gave it to me or simply left it with me for safekeeping, I couldn't tell for sure. I kept it and showed it respect as a matter of course. From that day on, all the illnesses in his family disappeared, and in 1952, he moved to Bangkok. There are a good many more strange things connected with this Buddha image, but this is all I want to say about it for now. After the event with May Kaum, I became curious about the Buddha's relics and how they came about. Never during my life as a monk had I ever been interested in them at all. But I did accept the relics from May Kaum and treated them with respect. Later, I learned that she had received more relics, but by then I had put the Buddha image away in the Ram Kai quarters at Wat Boromnivasa. And as for myself, I had taken my leave of the Somdet and gone to Lopburi province. That year I celebrated Visakha Puja at Wat Manichalachan in Lopburi. On that day, I said to myself, if I don't see the Buddha's relics appear with my own eyes, I won't believe in them because I have no idea whether or not they're for real. I made a vow to sit in meditation until dawn. I set out 4 receptacles and made the following invitations. 1. May sacred relics of the Buddha, from his ears, eyes, nose, and mouth, which were the sources of his splendor, if they really exist, come to this altar tonight too. May relics of Phra Sariputta, one of the Buddha's important disciples, also come. 3. May relics of Phra Moggallana, whose powers were equal to those of the Buddha, also come. 4. May relics of Phra Sivali, a monk of goodwill who was safe at all times wherever he went, also come. If these relics really exist, may they come and appear. If I don't see anything appear tonight, I'll give away all the relics that people have presented to me. That night, I went without sleep and sat in meditation until dawn. At about 4 a.m., I had a feeling that there was a bright red light flashing right where I had placed the receptacles. At daybreak, I discovered relics in each of the receptacles. The room where they were placed had been locked up tight from sunset to dawn. No one would have been able to enter, and I myself hadn't gone in. I felt really taken aback. This was the first time anything like this had happened in my life. Quickly, I wrapped the relics in cotton wool, placed them in a pouch, and kept them with me. Altogether, I received 3 relics of Phra Sariputta, 3 of Phra Sivali, 2 of Phra Moggallana, and 7 of the Buddha. Some were the color of milky quartz, some were black, some a dark yellowish grey. The ones May Kam had given me, though, were the color of pearls. I took them with me as I headed north. As time passed, a number of other things occurred that I'd rather keep to myself for the time being. As the rains approached, I went to stay in Mae Rim district, Chiang Mai province. I had made up my mind to go deep into the forest, and so, leaving Mae Rim, I went to Ban Pa Ting, which took a day of walking. From there, I went deep into the wilderness, up the mountains and down, reaching my destination at what must have been no later than 4 in the afternoon. This was a spot where a student of mine had once spent a rains retreat, and that year I spent the rains there. It was a village of Karen and Yang hill tribesmen, with about 6 or 7 households. There was no level ground at all, nothing but mountains and hills. The place where I stayed was at the foot of a hill, a little less than a kilometre from the village, near a flowing stream. The weather was bitter cold, both day and night. I arrived there the day before Asalha Puja, and on the day we took our vows to spend the rains, I started coming down with a fever. This was a really primitive place. The people were all hill tribesmen, and my basic diet that rainy season consisted of salt, peppers, and rice. That was all, no fish or meat. During the latter half of July, I became seriously ill. Some days, I almost lost consciousness. One morning at dawn, I tried to get up to go out for alms but couldn't. I felt dizzy and faint, and was shivering so violently that my hut started shaking. I was all by myself. The monks with me had all gone out for alms. So I went to warm myself by a fire and began to feel a bit better. I suffered like this all through the rains. I could hardly eat at all. During the entire 3 months, I was able to eat no more than 10 mouthfuls of food a day. Some days I couldn't eat anything at all. But my body and mind felt light, and my heart was at ease, not the least perturbed by my illness. My symptoms got more serious on July 29th. I started running a high fever and felt really faint, numb all over my body. This made me begin to have doubts about my survival, so I got up and took out my pouch of relics, wrapped it in an old worn-out shoulder cloth, and placed it up high on a shelf. Then I made a resolution. If you really are sacred, give me a sign. If I'm going to die here, I want you all to disappear. I then entered my umbrella tent and stilled my mind. At dawn the next day I found the pouch and shoulder cloth in opposite sides of the room, but none of the relics were missing. They were still there, scattered all over the shelf where I had placed them. It looked as if I probably wouldn't die that year, but would still be sick for a while longer. One day, I was thinking over events in the past and started feeling disgusted. So I made a resolution. I'd like some good resources to have at my disposal in the future. If I don't acquire them, I don't want to leave the forest. 1. I want to attain supernatural powers. If I can't, may I go all the way in 7 days. Even if my life is to end during those 7 days, I'm willing to give it up as an offering. 2. Wherever there are any good, quiet, restful spots, may the forest spirits lead me there. After making my resolution, I sat in meditation. A vision appeared, a bright light and a cave reaching clear through a mountain. It occurred to me, if I enter this cave, I'll probably go all the way through. But just as I decided to go right then and there, I started feeling so faint that my body swayed. I had to grab hold of one of the posts in the hut, so that was as far as I got. After that, my illness slowly began to recede. One day, I took one of my followers out looking for wood to make into charcoal so that I could have a fire to keep myself warm at night. The next day, a boy from the village told me, "It's not good for a sick person to go looking for firewood. There's an old saying that a sick person looking for firewood is looking for wood for his funeral pyre." The boy's name was Teng, and he was a little deranged. He went on to say, "I really have it hard. Every night spirits come and pull my legs and won't let me get any sleep." I didn't pay him any attention. Late one night, when it was quiet and I was feeling really ill, I set some charcoal stoves all around myself. After I had dozed off for a moment, a woman dressed in white, followed by 2 girls and carrying a white flag covered with a long string of Chinese characters, came toward me and said, "I'm Queen of the Devas. If you live here, you have to bow down to me." I wasn't willing to bow down, seeing as I was a monk. Still, she insisted. We had a long argument, but I stood firm. Finally, she left the hut, climbed the hill, and disappeared. I meditated in comfort for the rest of the night. Another day, a while later, September 16th, I had a dizzy spell early in the morning. Afterwards, I didn't have the strength even to come down from the hut and couldn't eat any food. At about 1 in the afternoon, I got up and sat by the window. The hut was at the foot of the hill, and the stream flowed right past the window. All around the hut, the ground was cleared and clean. It was swept every day. A lot of things happened that day. 1. There was a foul stench unlike anything I had ever smelled before. 2. A big green foul-smelling fly came and landed right on my face. It looked to me as if I were going to die. I sat in meditation until the fly flew away and the stench vanished. I began to have doubts about my survival, so I made a vow. If I'm going to die, I want a clear sign. If I have the potential to live on and be of use, I also want a sign. After I had made my vow, I sat facing west, looking out through the window with my mind under control. After a moment, 2 doves came flying to the window. First, a male dove came from the south, made a sharp cry, and landed on the sill. A moment later, a female dove came from the north. They fluttered their wings and cooed to each other. They seemed cheerful and confident. And then, after another moment, the clouds that had been covering the sky parted and bright sunlight came pouring through. Not since the beginning of the rainy season had there been even as much as 30 minutes of sunlight in a single day. The entire 3 months the sky had been dull, always covered by clouds and fog. But now the sun shone down all bright and dazzling. The calls of the birds echoed clearly through the forest. My heart felt refreshed. I came to the conclusion, I'm not going to die. One night afterwards, toward the end of the rains, I went down to do walking meditation to the south of my hut. And a vision appeared to me. I saw myself and an elephant tumbling around in the water. Sometimes I'd be on top of the elephant. Sometimes he'd be on top of me. A moment later, in the same vision, a sermon seat came floating through the air, about 6 meters off the ground. It was painted a dull red and covered with cloth from India, interwoven with gold. The vision seemed to say, "Please climb onto the sermon seat. All your aspirations will be fulfilled." But there was no one in the vision. This is no time for lies, I thought, and the vision disappeared. Right at the very end of the rains, I practiced walking around the foot of the hill, but I'd get tired and faint. My ears would start ringing, and I'd almost pass out. If this was the way things were, I wouldn't be able to leave the mountains after the rains were over, so I made a resolution. If I'm going to live on and be involved with humanity, may I be able to get out of the mountains. But if my involvement is over, I'll write a letter bidding farewell. By the day after the end of the rain's retreat, my illness seemed to be over. My symptoms weren't even 20% of what they had been before the next day. The hill tribesmen accompanied us out of the forest, carrying our things, and at the same time crying in a way that was really heartrending. That had been a damp, chilly place to stay. Even salt, if you didn't keep it shut tight in a container, would dissolve away. We ate hill tribe food all throughout the rains. They'd take bamboo shoots, caladium leaves, and tubers, stew them until they were mushy, then add salt, rice, and pounded chili peppers, leaves, stems, and all, and boil it all down together in a pot. This was the sort of fare we had to eat. In all the years since my ordination, this rainy season was the ultimate in primitiveness as far as food was concerned. Even their peppers were strange. When you swallowed one, it would be hot all the way down to your intestines. And yet the hill tribes people themselves were all large and stocky. I had thought that they would be dark and sickly, but they turned out to be fair and plump. They had an admirable culture. There was no quarrelling, and none of the people in the village ever raised their voices. They refused to use things bought in the market. Mostly, they used things they had made themselves. Their crops were vegetables and wild rice, because there was no level land for growing white rice. After the rains, I returned to Mei Rim and then went down to the city of Chiang Mai. The only symptom remaining from my illness was an irregular heartbeat. The lay people, who had been most concerned about my condition and had from time to time sent supplies from Chiang Mai to where I was staying in the forest, Kun Nai Chusri and Mai Kai Run, brought me spice medicine for my dizzy spells. After staying in Chiang Mai at Wat Santidam for a while, I went down to stay at Phra Cave in Lampang, where a student of mine had spent the rains. While there, I began to have the feeling that I would have to return to Bangkok. The Somdet was seriously ill and I'd have to stay with him, but something inside me didn't want to go. One night, I vowed to have an answer to the question of whether or not I should go to Bangkok. I sat in meditation until dawn at about 4 a.m. I felt as if my head had been cut off, but my heart was bright and not afraid. After that, my illness was virtually all gone. I returned to Bangkok and stayed at Wat Boromnivasa. At the time, the Somdet was very ill and gave me an order. You'll have to stay with me until I die. As long as I'm still alive, I don't want you to leave. I don't care whether or not you come to look after me. I just want to know that you're around. So I promised to stay. Sometimes I'd wonder about what karma I had done that had me cooped up like this, but then I'd remember the caged dove I had dreamed about in Chanthaburi. That being the case, I'd have to stay. Once I had made up my mind to stay, the Somdet asked me to come and teach him meditation every day. I had him practice anapanasati, keeping the breath in mind. We talked about a number of things while he sat in meditation. One day he said, I never dreamed that sitting in samadhi would be so beneficial. But there's one thing that has me bothered. To make the mind still and bring it down to its basic resting level, bhavanga. Isn't this the essence of becoming and birth? That's what samadhi is, I told him, becoming and birth. But the Dhamma we're taught to practice is for the sake of doing away with becoming and birth. So, what are we doing giving rise to more becoming and birth? If you don't make the mind take on becoming, it won't give rise to knowledge, because knowledge has to come from becoming. If it's going to do away with becoming, this is becoming on a small scale. Upatika bhava, which lasts for a single mental moment. The same holds true with birth. To make the mind still so that samadhi arises for a long mental moment is birth. Say we sit in concentration for a long time, until the mind gives rise to the 5 factors of jhana. That's birth. If you don't do this with your mind, it won't give rise to any knowledge of its own. And when knowledge can't arise, how will you be able to let go of ignorance? It'd be very hard. As I see it, I went on, most students of the Dhamma really misconstrue things. Whatever comes springing up, they try to cut it down and wipe it out. To me, this seems wrong. It's like people who eat eggs. Some people don't know what a chicken is like. This is ignorance. As soon as they get hold of an egg, they crack it open and eat it, but say they know how to incubate eggs. They get 10 eggs, eat 5 of them, and incubate the rest. While the eggs are incubating, that's becoming. When the baby chicks come out of their shells, that's birth. If all 5 chicks survive, then as the years pass, it seems to me that the person who once had to buy eggs will start benefiting from his chickens. He'll have eggs to eat without having to pay for them, and if he has more than he can eat, he can set himself up in business, selling them. In the end, he'll be able to release himself from poverty. So it is with practicing samadhi. If you're going to release yourself from becoming, you first have to go live in becoming. If you're going to release yourself from birth, you'll have to know all about your own birth. As soon as I said this, he understood and began to beam. He seemed both pleased and impressed. The way you say things, he said, is really different from the way other meditation monks talk. Even though I still can't put what you say into practice, I can understand you clearly and have no doubts that what you're saying is true. I used to live near Ajahn Mun and Ajahn Sao, but I never benefited from them the way I've benefited from having you stay with me. There seem to be a lot of surprising things that occur when I sit in meditation. After that, he seemed to be interested in meditating for long periods of time, sometimes 2 hours at a stretch. While he was meditating, he'd have me speak Dhamma to go along with his meditation. As soon as his mind would be quiet and steady, I'd start speaking, and his mind seemed to behave right in line with what I'd be saying. One day he said, "I've been ordained for a long time, but I've never felt anything like this." From then on, I never had to give him any more long talks. As soon as I'd say 2 or 3 words, he'd understand what I was referring to. As for me, I was pleased. One day he said, "People who study and practice the Dhamma get caught up on nothing more than their own opinions, which is why they never get anywhere. If everyone understood things correctly, there wouldn't be anything impossible about practicing the Dhamma." As I spent the rains there with the Somdet, my mind was at ease as far as having to explain things to him was concerned. He told me, "In the past, I never thought that practicing samadhi was in any way necessary." Then he added, "The monks and novices, and the lay people as well, haven't benefited enough from having you here. If you can, I'd like you to find the time to teach them too." He then informed the senior monks in the temple of his intention, and this was how the meditation training sessions at Urufong Hall came about. The first year, 1953, a number of lay people, monks and novices from other temples came and joined in the sessions. Thao Satyanurak came to stay at Nakama House, the home for nuns at the temple, and practice meditation with good results. Her mind gave rise to such unusual realizations that she decided to stay on at Wat Boromnivasa until her death. At the end of the rainy season, I took leave of the Somdet to go out wandering in the provinces. His illness by that time had abated somewhat. That year I returned to Wat Boromnivasa in time for Visakha Puja. That night, I went to sit in meditation in the ordination hall, and there was another event. I saw relics of the Buddha come and appear. Earlier in the evening, the thought had occurred to me, my eyes are small. I'd like to have great big eyes, able to see for miles and miles. My ears are small. I'd like to have great big ears, able to hear all around the world. My mouth is small. I'd like to have it wide, able to give a sermon that would echo for 5 days and nights. With this in mind, I decided to adopt 3 practices. 1. For a wide mouth, don't eat a lot or speak a lot on important days. 2. For big ears, don't listen to matters that aren't worth your while. Cut off your mouth, i.e. go without food. Cut off your ears, i.e. don't pay attention to anything at all. 3. For big eyes, go without sleep. So with this in mind, I decided to go without sleep on Visakha Puja. A little after 5 a.m., a lot of the Buddha's relics came to me there in the ordination hall. I spent the rains with the Somdet again. That year, lay people came out for the meditation sessions in even larger numbers than the year before. A number of bad events, though, began to interfere because some of the monks had become envious and started looking for ways to spoil things. I'd rather not name names, though. Whoever wants to learn the details can go ask Thao Satyanurak or the Somdet. One evening at about 7, a monk named Phra Krupalat came to my quarters and said in a low voice, "I hope you aren't upset, Ajahn. I'm on your side all the way." "Well, I'm glad to hear it, but I don't know of anything that would make me upset. Tell me what's up." So he gave me the details and then added, "The rumor has already reached the Somdet. If he has any doubts about you, he'll probably call you to his quarters for questioning. If and when he calls you, let me know. I'll stand up for you." As it turned out, though, the Somdet never said a word about the matter and never asked me even a single question. We simply kept on discussing the Dhamma, as always. An anonymous letter appeared and made the rounds. Writing texts is Phra Dhammasan's daily habit. Ajahn Lees is instructing his young lady friend. Old grey-haired Mahaprem would like to be abbot, while Luang Tapan babbles on without end. Phra Dhammasan was given a thorough grilling as a result of the letter. People believed he had written it as an attack on me. I had no idea of what was going on. There seemed to be a lot of things unworthy of monks going on, but I didn't pay them any attention. The day after the rainy season was over, Mahanarong came to see the Somdet, and then came down and asked permission to copy down the information in my identification papers. When he had finished, he returned to the Somdet and told him that the director's office at Mahamakut Buddhist University had sent for the information so that they could arrange for me to be given the title of Phra the Somdet sent for me. "This is what they have to say," he told me. "What do you have to say?" "I'm the sort of monk who, if it's not necessary, has never wanted to have anything to do with this sort of thing. Whatever good I've done has been for the sake of the group as a whole." So he told me, "I'll answer them myself." And then he added, "I'll tell them. Phra Ajahn Lee came to stay here because I asked him to, and he has stayed on out of respect for me. For you to arrange a title for him will, as I see it, drive him away from me." That, he said, was how he would answer them. "Good," was my reply. As a result, the whole idea was abandoned for the time being.